Tanu Rabbanon. Okay? No'atz arba kundisen. You stuck 4 poles onto the roof of a house. Okay? No'at, you stuck arba kundisen, 4 poles into the roof of a house. V'sikach al gabon. So you stuck 4 poles into the roof of a house, and you put schach on top of that roof. On top of those poles, excuse me. V'sikach, you put schach al gabon on top of those poles. So you took 4 poles, you went to the roof and picture a chuppah canopy, right? Just had poles, simple poles. Rabbi Yaakov holds the sukkah is kosher. Chachamim poislim. Chachamim say it's possible. Okay? So let's see. Rav Huna says, Machloikes. Now look at this. Okay, so let's bear in mind it's a machloikes between Rabbi Yaakov and the Chachamim. Rabbi Yaakov holds that these 4 poles is kosher sukkah, and the Chachamim holds it's not a kosher. Zok the Gemara. Rav Huna says let's understand this machloikes. Machloikes, the machloikes between Rabbi Yaakov and the Chachamim is al svas hagag, is on the edge of the roof, where they put the 4 poles on the edge of the roof. Okay? So these 4 poles are placed on the edge of the roof. The Rabbi Yaakov Savar, Rabbi Yaakov holds, Amrinon, we say, good asik mechitsta. Rabbi Yaakov holds, this is Rav Huna's analysis. Rabbi Yaakov says, we say good asik mechitsta. Right? We say good asik. And you write on the side, because the walls of a house are considered noticeable enough. Right? Remember before Rava said you need to have recognizable mechitzas? So Rav Huna says that Rabbi Yaakov would hold that this is recognizable. Because they're always functioning as walls. If you have a house, the walls are always functioning as walls. Rabbi Yaakov says, Amrinan good asik mechitzta. We say good asik, and these are considered recognizable walls. Rabbanon Sabri, the Rabbanon holds lo yamrin good asik mechitzta. We don't say good asik on the walls of this house, because the Rabbanon hold right on the side. You need a real. It needs to be really noticeable. Meaning you can't just rely on the walls of the house. There needs to be something protruding. You can write on the side. You need to have something protruding, something more noticeable. Avol, however, be'emtza gag, in the middle of the roof, divrei hakol pasula. Everybody holds that it's possible, because you don't have any walls between and below the poles. You write on the side.
What happens in the house in that exact spot?
Yeah, but we don't see that. I don't think that we would consider that. Meaning, if there was a wall in the middle and you went to the roof, you don't say that. You go down a level. It has to be that you're using the walls on the outside.
How close to the walls the poles have to be to the walls in order for it to work?
That's also a good shiloh. That's also, but we want to say good.
If it's be'emtza gag, would it be 4 tefachim?
That would be interesting.
Or because there are walls, maybe 3.
No, because I don't think this is what Meir is asking is a big shaila, which I don't look into. It's you're combining 2 halacha Moshe Sinai's.
Because good asik.
You have what he wants to do. You have what he wants to do. Good asik and use lavud, and you don't have walls at all. You're like you hear what you're doing, right?
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
But now you have. But it's a big shaila if you could combine 2 halacha Moshe Sinai's. Okay, but that's what we're touching on. Okay, fine. So everybody say that's the first way that we understand the machlekes. What's the first way? The first way is Rav Huna's understanding. Rav Huna says the whole machlekes is only on the edge of the roof. If you build a sukkah on the edge of the roof, you say you have a house and you just took poles. Now this is not 3D, so you're only going to see 2 poles. And you took 2 poles right at the edge of the house and the roof of the house. And the shaila is, you say good asik to give you, right? You say good asik over here. But let's say you went like this, you took 2 poles in the middle, there's no good asik, nothing. You have two poles. Rabbanan Savi I mean a good asik, Mechitza. Aber beim Tzagag diver kol pesula. Okay. Rav Nachman analyzes the machlekes differently. Says Rav Nachman. Beim Tzagag machlekes. In the middle of the gag, there's a machlekes. Period.
Why is the middle different than Amar?
Oh, so very good. What's discussed over here? Everybody say this is important. This is very important. What does it mean? Machlekes. Just 1 second. Hold on. Okay. He says in the middle of the gag there's a machlekes. Rabbi say this you have to here, and then you have to just write it in. I had all the notes written in my Gemara exactly how it should be, but I forgot my Gemara in the last minute. So Rabbi say he says in the middle of the roof there's a machlekes. How can there be a machlekes in the middle of the roof? Don't we have the shayla? Don't we have the issue of how do we don't have any walls over here? We don't have any walls. So how can you say in the middle there's a machlekes that Rabbi Yaakov would say it's okay
within three tvachim or 4 amos?
So you know what they're going to say? They're saying a different thing. They say this pole over here, the poles we're talking about. Look, everybody say is very thick poles. What does very thick poles do for us?
If they're tefach thick, at least.
These poles are very thick, and they're tefach by tefach. So you can carve out of it a tefach by tefach wall. So picture you have four of these. You have a sukkah that's like this. Because technically, out of each pole you can carve a tefach by tefach. So the machlekes, that this one I'm going to write on the side, right? So who is this now? Rabbi say, just jumping back to the Gemara here. Here we look at this. Rab Nachman Amar Be'em Tzagag machlekes. This is what you should write on the side. Be'em Tzagag machlekes. Be'em Tzagag machlekes, and right on the side, we're talking about where the poles are tefach by a tefach. Okay, the poles are tefach by tefach. And Rabbi Yaakov holds that that's enough for sukkah. You don't need to have long walls. Enough to have a tefach by tefach, right? And the Rabbanah holds no. You need to have 7 tefachim walls. The walls have to be 7 tefachim. Yeah, you need to have proper walls. Is it clear? Yeah, it's clear.
Yeah.
It's clear. Yitzi. No. No.
We'll go back for it. It's fine.
No. I'll 1 second.
Go back.
I'll do it.
Go back.
My mind's a little fuzzy.
We're going
candy.
Takes a man. 10 minutes.
No, but he said, listen to this. Let me just speak outside for 1 minute. I'm speaking outside for 1 minute. I'm speaking Gemara outside for 1 minute. But he said, let's speak the Gemara outside for 1 minute. The Gemara brought down a machlekes. If you take 4 poles on top of roof, is that a good sukkah or not? Rabbi Yaakov says it's a good sukkah. Chachamim say it's not a good sukkah. Klar machlekes is if you take 4 poles in the middle of a roof, is that a good sukkah or not? Right? 4 poles in the middle of the roof, and he puts chach on top of them. Is that good or not? Okay. Rav Huna says. Let me explain to you the machlekes. Rav Huna says that Rabbi Yaakov holds it's good because you say good asik. Excuse me. Rav Huna says that the machlekes is where Rav Huna comes in. The machlekes is on the edge of the roof. This machlekes between Rabbi Yaakov that says it's good and the Rabbanan say it's not good is on the edge of the roof. Rabbi Yaakov said you say good asik, and the walls of the house are noticeable enough, and the Rabbanan says you don't say good asik because the walls of the house are not considered noticeable. Clear?
It's by the edge.
By the edge, but in the middle, it's never good. No, in the middle you have no walls. How can poles be good? Period. That's the first way to understand it. So machlekes Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbanon. That's Rav Huna's explanation of the machlekes. Machlekes is on the edge, whether you say that the walls are noticeable enough to say grasik or not. Rav Nachman comes along and says no. Rav Nachman makes one statement: in the middle of the sukkah, in the middle of the roof is the machlekes. Now we have to say, what is the machlekes? How can you have a sukkah that's kosher? How can you have poles that give you walls in the middle of the roof? How can you say in the middle? Everybody say, look, this is the roof of the house. Take 4 poles. 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't have any walls. All you have is 4 poles, right? All you have is 4 poles. How in the world can you have, right? So we have one statement from Rav Nachman. Be'emtza hagag machlekes. What does that mean? Be'emtza hagag. How can you? So everybody say, look over here for a second, and please try to write this on the side. You ready? Right? According to Rav Nachman, the poles are a tefach wide and a tefach long. So it's length and width is a tefach. Right? So Rabbi Yaakov would hold that if you have 4 of these poles, those are good. That's good enough for sukkah. You see?
It's good enough for what?
It's good enough to be considered a wall. You see, Rabbi Yitzi? Look at this. Look at this picture here. Really, the wall. Really, you have the pole is like this, but being that each pole can be carved out to give you this type of wall, a tefach by tefach, and you have 4 of these. You have 4 of these, right? Picture these are the 4 poles, right? But technically, you could carve out a tefach by tefach, right?
So it would connect.
So it would. They're not even going to connect over here. But being that you have 4 of these, that's considered good enough.
Only according to Rabbi Yaakov.
Only according to Rabbi Yaakov. And the Rabbanon.
One second, you need to come out to good asik because.
Oh no, it's not good asik.
So we're not coming out to good asik.
Not good asik. No, it's not good asik. This is for sukkah. This is enough. For sukkah, this would be enough. Okay. Okay. And the Rabbanan, write this on the side. And the Rabbanan would hold that you need to have proper walls. You can't rely on a tefach by a tefach. You need to have walls that are 7 tefachim long. That's according to the minimum size sukkah. So that's the second explanation of the Gemara. The first explanation is what? Is that they're only arguing about the edge of the roof. Whether you say good asik, whether the walls are noticeable enough to say good asik. The second way to understand the machlekes is no, we're not relying on good asik. In the middle of the wall, in the middle of the roof, there's a machlekes. What's that machlekes in the middle of the roof? Whether when you have thick poles, do you say that because you could carve out a tefach by tefach, that's good enough or not? Rabbi Yaakov says, yeah, that's good. And Rabbanan say, no, you need to have proper walls.
Since when there was the din in the walls themselves having a measurement of 77? Since when does the wall need to be of a certain length?
Well,
we know that the space within the sukkah has to be a certain size. That's the din of sukkah.
Right, we're going to see it later because we have the Roshas. The sukkah has to have 3 walls, 2.5 walls or so.
2.5 walls.
So
7 walls of wall.
No, if your sukkah has to be 7 tvachim, then we assume that a wall. If you need to have 2 walls, and 2 walls have to span the length of a kasher sukkah.
So at this point, we're just working under the assumption that the actual wall has to be a length of the 7 tvachim.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Is that clear? It's clear. Rabbi say. Ibayelu, the Gemara asks. We're analyzing Rav Nachman's last statement. According to Rav Nachman, Ibayelu, they asked. Now I added in according to Rav Nachman, which is you'll see it's clear. He says be'emtza gag machlekes. Rav Nachman made one statement. In the middle of the roof, there's a machlekes. Aval al svas hagag diver kol keshera. But on the edge of the roof, everybody would hold that it's kosher. That's what Gemara is asking. Would you say that means Rav Nachman makes a statement in the middle of the wall? It's they're arguing. They ask, does that imply that the edge of the wall is kosher, and then you write on the side because we say good asik, because we would saka say good asik? Idilma, or maybe bein bezu, whether in the middle, or bein bezu, or on the edge machlekes. We have a machlekes. And Rabbi said, if you noticed, what's going to be the machlekes? It's a 2-way machlekes. In the middle of the roof, they're arguing about the size of the walls, and on the edge of the roof, they're arguing the Yisei Asik. You have that? If you say they're arguing about both, right? So in the middle of the roof, what are they arguing about? What are they arguing about in the middle of the roof? Do these walls work? Tefach by tefach, right? In the middle of the roof. These,
Thickness, no?
I mean, the thickness, exactly. But what about the edge of the roof? What are they arguing about the edge of the roof? By the edge of the roof, the whole machlekes is whether you say garasik to just shoot up, right? So in the middle of the roof, there's a machlekes whether you say that you use a tefach by tefach. The edge of the roof, there's a machlekes whether you say garasik.
So it is a machlokes.
The Gemara is asking. The Gemara asking me because Rav Nachman made one statement. Rav Nachman said in the middle of the roof they're arguing. So I said, wait, does that mean on the edge of the roof they're not, and they agree that you can say ganasik according to Rav Nachman's understanding, or no? He's come and say they even argue in the middle of the roof. Right? That's the Gemara's thing. Okay. Should we stop over here? No, let's stop over here. Let's stop over here. Is the Olam in with Hashem's up tomorrow?